a storm was coming to WWE. A merciless trio that would wreck its way through the roster. The Shield.
Fighters. Mercenaries. A three-man SWAT team coming for a war.
They were reckless, aggressive, and ruthless. Not just in front of the camera.
We were never going to take no for an answer. We were never going to, be meek. We were going to push everybody out of the way. We in our minds and our level of confidence thought we were so much better than everybody else. We were going to have to raise people up. That's how we looked at the locker room at the time. That was probably insulting to a lot of veterans, but we just didn't care. We're just going to run through every wall.
Sierra, Hotel, Indian,
Echo, Lima, Delta, Shield.
The hounds of justice are upon us.
These guys truly may be unstoppable.
Nobody's ever gone out there and really showed teamwork like we did.
They just keep getting better and better and better.
We were going to go out every night, be better than everybody else.
For many, they're the best stable in WWE history. Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Roman Reigns. Three of the finest wrestlers in the world on the same team. Fans ate it up. But the original plans for the Shield were very different. They weren't exactly popular with the higher-ups. This documentary delves into the story behind the rise of the Shield and peeks behind the curtain at some lesser-known details.
I knew that I was better than everyone in developmental. I'm going to say that right now.
Basically, we got all the ladies covered.
He and I had a lot of conflicts over this.
Can we not just write one good storyline?
November 18th, 2012, at Survivor Series in Indianapolis. Three young men crash the main event, wreaking havoc.
My God!
A mysterious and captivating debut that marked the dawn of a new era, the Shield era. Originally, they were supposed to sport SWAT shields. However, that would have made their entrance through the audience rather difficult. The shields were too clunky to scale over the barriers with. Initially, the Shield's blueprint looked very different from what we actually got. NXT champion Seth Rollins was supposed to team up with Daniel Bryan and Big Show. That idea evolved through CM Punk, who proposed pairing Seth Rollins with Dean Ambrose and Chris Hero. CM Punk and Hero were pals. Punk tried to give him an opportunity, but Vince didn't see the star potential in Hero. Instead, he saw it in another top talent, Roman Reigns.
Roman is a true powerhouse and a very gifted young man.
Future champion? Absolutely. Future Hall of Famer? Absolutely.
This young man just has a presence about him, a star quality.
Rarely does Vince bother with footage from the developmental territory, but he did for Roman Reigns, because talent scouts William Regal and Triple H sang his praises. They recognized former footballer 𝗖𝗢𝗣𝗍𝗬𝗧's potential, showing the boss their big new catch.
WWE officials know what they have when they see Roman Reigns. They know they have a potential mega superstar in their midst.
He's got a great look, a great heritage, a good body, and he can talk.
Incredible charisma, sheer power, and athleticism. Vince McMahon was hooked. Reigns was the missing piece to the Shield. He fit like a glove. Ambrose as the scruffy, mentally unhinged brawler, with Heath Ledger Joker vibes, Seth Rollins as the high flyer and immensely talented in-ring athlete, and Roman Reigns as the silent muscle and powerhouse. Together, they covered each other's weaknesses, leaving no real vulnerabilities from a craftsmanship or storyline perspective. Ironically, the three were so different that they shouldn't have worked as a team, yet they did. While other teams like the Road Warriors or the Usos shine through similarity, the Shield was a perfect mix of complementing differences. On December 25th, 2012, Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns spend Christmas morning with their loved ones. All three of them are nervous, because on the same Christmas day, they will fly to Rosemont, Illinois for a SmackDown house show the next day. It's their first tour together, so tensions are running high. In the evening, the trio checks into their hotel in Rosemont and they grab a drink. The next evening, they lose a match to Ryback, Daniel Bryan, and Kane.
I was so overwhelmed emotionally. It was nervous energy, but in a good way. Like I was ready. We all were.
Everything goes to plan. The Hounds of Justice then hop into their rental car, heading from Rosemont to Detroit. Seth Rollins takes the wheel. He's the best driver. They stop at a drive-thru, then spend 5 hours on Interstate 94. It's the first of roughly 300 joint road trips. Time spent in the car, traveling between shows, becomes a bonding ritual, where they discuss everything, share their worries, and form a real brotherhood.
Don't get me wrong, we got attitudes and we got egos, big ones. But we're willing to check them for each other, and that's what a brotherhood is all about.
The Shield did an outstanding job, doing exactly what Vince asked of them, but they weren't exactly the toast of the town amongst their peers. The backstage climate in 2012 and 2013 was intense. Opportunities for young talents to shine were scarce. Hence, there were regular disputes, jealousy, and envy issues. Wrestlers sometimes refused to sell for each other, meaning they wouldn't properly react to their opponent's moves, making them look less impactful. Because in wrestling, audience reactions also depend on how good your opponent makes you look. Armed with this knowledge, CM Punk gave the boys of the Shield some rather extreme advice.
CM Punk pulling us to the side, he was like, people are going to be told not to sell for you. Somebody's probably in Ryback's ear telling him not to sell for you. So make sure he does. So that was all we needed to hear. I was like, well, f him then. So we literally just beat the shit out of him.
Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns took his advice. They beat down on their opponents, professionally and safely in terms of wrestling, but still, it hurt. Word got around backstage. The Shield wasn't the most popular, and numerous wrestlers viewed them with critical skepticism. At this point, Seth Rollins had already clashed with many other wrestlers, especially at NXT. He believed he was the best and acted accordingly.
This generation, they need a little kick in the butt sometimes. It's got to be more believable, and you spend more time adjusting your knee pads and elbow pads than you do worrying about throwing a good form. They've got a lot to learn, a lot to work on, and so I try to give them some tools they can use to help them progress.
On social media, he called himself the best wrestler in the world, perhaps inspired by CM Punk, one of Seth's mentors. Rollins trained under Punk. He looked up to him. Head of developmental Triple H had numerous arguments with CM Punk. The same arguments later came up between Triple H and Rollins. It was arrogance, thinking you're the best, not letting anyone change your mind, criticizing everyone, but not being able to take any criticism yourself. Shortly after arriving in NXT, he had a falling out with his boss.
He and I had a lot of conflicts over this, and he had it with the trainers, he had it with the coaches. He just felt like he knew, and he wasn't going to hear it from anybody else.
Rollins had no sense of authority, no sense of respect for legends of the sport who tried to give him some pointers. Sometimes he went so far as to tell his trainers in front of everyone else that they were doing a move wrong, and that he could show them how it's really done.
He was someone who wouldn't just be pushed into a corner. All right, this is the performer you need to be, so let's shave off your edges. Like, no, he fought to do things his way.
The only reason he wasn't kicked out long ago was his undeniable talent. But Seth wasn't done yet. He said he was ready for his call-up. In fact, he believed he had what it takes to be world champion soon, and he was insistent.
He used to call me once a month saying, Johnny, I'm the top guy down here. I want to come up. When am I going to get my opportunity? And I told him, hey, patience is a virtue.
I knew I had a lot to offer to the main roster, and I was not afraid to speak out, kind of ruffled in feathers occasionally. And some of those feathers that I ruffled happened to belong to the Red Rooster himself, Terry Taylor.
Terry Taylor is a wrestling legend, coach at NXT, and friend of Triple H. Together with Shawn Michaels, Taylor led the finishing class, the last of 4 stages before talents move up to the main shows. This is where the finishing touches are supposed to happen, But Seth Rollins didn't want to be fine-tuned.
Triple H was getting ready to get Seth and call him up to the main roster. And I said, he's not ready, he's immature.
There were debates behind the scenes about whether Seth was ready for Raw or SmackDown. Terry Taylor said he wasn't. He had had enough of a rebellious indie star who claimed that his way of wrestling was the only way.
You have to get rid of what you believe got you here, because what got you here won't get you there, which is the main roster.
And he thought that I didn't have what it took to be a top guy. And he made sure to let me know that on a daily basis in one way or another.
The old analogy I used with him is, I said, you speak French, but we speak English. And you think that if you keep speaking French long enough, we're all gonna start speaking French.
I didn't appreciate that, and I didn't take kindly to it. I was losing my mind a little bit down there, I'm not gonna lie.
The tension between Rollins and Taylor grew stronger every day. They avoided each other, didn't look each other in the eye. At some point, Taylor blurted out what he had been thinking for a long time.
He told me, point blank, he didn't see anything special in me. And that I wasn't who I thought I was, essentially. I thought, go f yourself. That's what I thought. I've always been supremely confident in my own ability, and I didn't really care who he was in that moment. And there was nobody that was going to tell me who I was or how special I was or wasn't.
Rollins sabotaged himself. His biggest problem was his youthful overconfidence. Much of his behavior went back to the fact that he grew up without a father figure, as he later said in interviews. Rollins says he needed someone to put him in his place, and Triple H was ready to do that.
I had never met my biological father, so he is like my wrestling father.
And then finally, it came to a moment where he and Triple H had a big talk because I threw my hands up. I said, he's either got to go with you or got to go.
And we had a conversation right there. This is it. So you change today. The first whiff I catch of this again, and we're done.
I am 2 seconds away from pulling you out of this whole thing. I need to know right now, you either get on this program or you can go tell me how great you are someplace else.
And he, swore to me up and down that he finally understood.
This was exactly what he needed. Someone to show him his limits.
It was something that frustrated me, but it also very much lit a fire under me. And I was going to find a way to make sure that he knew how good I was.
And Rollins taking a chance.
Seth Rollins was really like a stallion that almost needed to be broken.
Right.
Despite everything that had happened, Triple H liked Seth, arrogant as he was. He reminded him of his best friend Shawn Michaels when he was younger. This sympathy covered Seth's weaknesses, and he started working on himself.
I wanted to be the face of that brand. I wanted to prove not just to the fans who I knew I could impress, but to Triple H and the brass in WWE that, look, I want this.
Rollins' talent was undeniable. He was considered a fantastic wrestler and entertainer. However, he often had trouble navigating the social waters. Big Show lodged complaints about Seth Rollins due to inappropriate behavior backstage. What exactly he complained about remains unclear. Some reports hinted at Rollins' then-girlfriend being involved in the incident. Roman Reigns also had some issues, notably with Randy Orton. After a botched move at a live event, the two clashed backstage, yelling at each other. Their heated argument lasted for several weeks. They blamed each other for the dangerous botch. The conflict was nasty. According to reports at the time, Vince McMahon thought about punishing the Shield, halting their push. However, Triple H apparently convinced him otherwise, as reported by the Wrestling Observer.
We were like bloodying people's noses and people were getting upset about it. Like there are people who are complaining about it. Like I won't mention any names. People are giving us dirty eyes and dirty looks and like these new fucking Shield guys. Fuck them.
But the longer the Shield performed, the more Vince, Triple H, and the other bookers took a liking to them. Joey Mercury, part of the creative team and a huge Shield fan, played a significant role in their push. WWE was banking on the Shield. They handed them big matches and storylines, promos, and TV time, giving them space to prove themselves and etch themselves into the minds of the audience. There were plans to transform them into a larger stable. The argument was, the Shield consisted only of unestablished newcomers. They needed a ready-made star. The creative team wanted to add CM Punk and Paul Heyman.
So originally we were supposed to be with Punk. Us and him and Paul were kind of like a group for the first few weeks. We rode on Punk's bus and hung out with him and stuff, and we were kind of like all together.
At that time, CM Punk still had a good rapport with Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns. They also spent time together privately, but Triple H didn't like that. He was the one who separated the Shield from Punk.
Then they kind of took us away from him and wanted us to be our own thing. I think it was probably Triple H who kind of like took us and tried to make us on our own and take us away from Punk.
Even without CM Punk, the Shield managed to prevail, a testament to their impressive success. The chemistry of the trio bordered on magic, eliciting reactions from fans of all ages. Some hated them, others loved them. The Shield quickly sold masses of merchandise. The vests, the masks, the Shield shirts. WWE raked in millions in sales. At WrestleMania 29, they triumphed on the grand stage against established names like Big Show, Sheamus, and Randy Orton. On the following SmackDown, they got to rough up The Undertaker. By then, they were known even to casual viewers. At Extreme Rules 2013, all three men won gold, United States, and tag team titles.
The Shield wins tag team gold! New United States champion, Dean Ambrose.
Ambrose remains the longest reigning US champion of the 21st century. Their showdown against the Wyatt family at Extreme Rules 2014 stands as perhaps the best stable versus stable match in WWE history, the two hottest teams facing off in a must-see match. This was followed by a feud against Evolution, where the Shield once again showcased their world-class skills.
They had this, I don't know if it was arrogance, but this confidence that they couldn't be stopped, and they wouldn't be stopped. And the reason why is they thought they should have been here a long time ago.
We all had the same mindset, which was we were going to go out every night and be better than everybody else, and there was nothing anybody could do about it.
I was in the locker room as the Shield is building, and there was such jealousy.
Not a lot of people get to experience the rise that we did.
But all good things must come to an end, including the era of the Shield. Fans dreaded this day, yet by the end of 2013, the stable's momentum had somewhat waned.
We ran out of people to work with. I think we beat Evolution pretty definitively in that feud, and after that, we'd been built so strongly as a unit that there wasn't another unit you could put us against.
They had defeated every opponent. There were simply no more suitable adversaries for them to feud with. Vince and his creative team aimed to dismantle the Shield in January of 2014. As Rollins described in a podcast with Stone Cold Steve Austin, WWE planned a dramatic breakup and a big feud between Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. The two were slated to face off in a major singles match at WrestleMania 30. Rollins wasn't part of the plan, at best a special guest referee, but that didn't sit well with him. He felt excluded. While WWE was developing major plans for Ambrose and Reigns, Rollins was sidelined. Rollins voiced his concerns backstage, first to his Shield buddies, then they went to the creative team and persuaded them to revise the split. Shortly after, Rollins was asked about a possible end to the Shield. He gave a nervous, politician-like response.
You guys doing your own thing? That's not something we're concerned with at the moment. At the moment, we're concerned with dominating Big Show, Sheamus, and Randy Orton.
On April 30th, 2014, in New Orleans at WrestleMania 30, the Shield entered the massive stadium together. The crowd adored them. They secured a dominant victory against their legendary opponents Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, and Kane. The Shield flattened them. However, they only got about 3 minutes, as Rollins mentioned in interviews, due to the starting segment and opener match running overtime. The Shield clinched victory as a unity instead of succumbing to internal strife and conflict, all because Seth Rollins protested against a booking idea that didn't suit him. It paid off. During one of their countless road trips, Seth persuaded his Shield brothers to advocate for a different solution to the undisputed dominance of the team. The trio wielded significant influence, they always stood up for each other, and their word carried weight. Typically, WWE talents are careful not to overplay their hand with Vince and Triple H, but with the Shield, it was often the other way around. Triple H and Vince knew how crucial these three stars would be for their company, so they considered their perspective.
After that first night, all the kind of ideas were ours.
That's what's great about the Shield is we all have very distinct opinions and we voice them.
As far as like the tactical gear and all that, and like our entrance was our idea.
The Shield standing tall. Believe in the Shield.
On June 2nd, 2014, on Monday Night Raw, Rollins nervously ran his hands through his hair backstage. While he usually appeared relatively cool before his performances, today, his colleagues perceived him as extremely tense. It was the day Seth Rollins betrayed his brothers, one of the most shocking and best heel turns of all time.
In 2013, Paul and I came back as the authority. Really, the authority figures in WWE. We're the bad bosses. We're the people who are treating our employees and our talent terribly, just to make a profit for ourselves.
They were doing the Shield and fully rolling and all that stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, like, they were as hot as they were going to be, and they were going to do what? There was really no place else to go. Tonight, Plan B.
Oh my God! Rollins assaulted Ambrose after he took out Reigns. What is going on here?
It was one of the most shocking moments in wrestling history, and Rollins brought it to life.
Working with Triple H so closely, you learn so much. You learn to think of things not in terms of moves or action, but in terms of story and moment.
Are you kidding me?
A big, bold step for Seth. He betrayed the unit they created.
I am responsible for all of their success. Rollins now, he's assaulting Ambrose!
It was a significant moment and the beginning of a major storyline. Rollins aligned himself with Triple H and became part of the authority, so the story goes. But even behind the scenes, that's exactly what happened. The cunning Seth Rollins leveraged his influence with Triple H. He didn't want to be the one member of the Shield left out in the cold. Instead, he became the protagonist, the star, the one with the spotlight on him. WWE went all in with Rollins, giving him the Money in the Bank briefcase. On the flip side, Rollins evolved into a cunning villain. Vince took a liking to him, though he let him lose repeatedly. But at the next WrestleMania, Rollins achieved massive success. In 2015 at WrestleMania 31, Roman Reigns faced Brock Lesnar as an unpopular face imposed on the fans by Vince McMahon. It was a brutal encounter, with lots of blood. Reigns struggled throughout the match. Eventually, he mounted a comeback, accompanied by a deafening choir of boos, until Seth Rollins emerged, cashed in his Money in the Bank contract, and won the grand prize. It was the pinnacle of his career, a bold statement. Vince, CEO of WWE, placed his bets on him, seeing him not just as the third wheel of the Shield, but as a future top star. Yet Rollins couldn't shake the feeling that Vince didn't view him as the best that he saw in himself. In an interview with BT Sports, Rollins said he felt like a placeholder champion. Everything revolved around Reigns. He was merely the villainous heel destined to fall to Reigns, the supposed hero of the story, when the time was right. Once again, Rollins felt like he was playing second fiddle, despite stepping into the arena every night with the most coveted prize in the business. In subsequent interviews, Rollins admitted to feeling lonely after the split. The Shield provided a brotherhood he sorely missed. Now he was on his own, delivering promos solo, often traveling solo. He had grown accustomed to sharing the spotlight with Ambrose and Reigns, which made it a difficult transition. He feared he would stumble over his words, forget key points, or come across as unconvincing. But his fears were unfounded. Rollins rose to the occasion and established himself as the top dog on Raw. Originally, the plan was for Roman Reigns to seize the spotlight. However, fans revolted against every push he received. The audience's negative reaction forced WWE to constantly pivot. While they aimed to crown Reigns as the champion, fans rejected him as the good guy. Despite this, Reigns still found himself in major storylines and matches.
I didn't want to break up the Shield. And I definitely didn't want to be a good guy. And that's exactly what was happening.
He was subtly being positioned as the guy who was going to come out of the group and be the biggest star.
Every week, Reigns had to take the microphone and embody a bland comic book character with childish humor.
Roman was the cool, silent muscle of the group. And once he broke away from the Shield, suddenly he wasn't so silent. And a lot of things that he was doing weren't so cool.
You are a sniveling little suck-up sellout full of suffering succotash, son!
The creative team wrote him promos filled with silly insults. Joe felt out of place in that role.
It's not like I had a whole bunch of options that I could just say, no, I'm not feeling this. This doesn't feel good to me, or I wouldn't say this. So you have to just be a good soldier and do what you're told.
Joe didn't want to be Roman Reigns, at least not this version of him. He wasn't being true to himself. Yet the powers that be were determined to push him. He won one of the biggest matches of the year, the Royal Rumble. It was a massive success, but the fans hated it. That night turned into a debacle.
You think of these moments. You dream about it. And the moment that it actually happens, it's like they're playing the worst soundtrack of all time over your moment, ruining your party.
There might have been a bit of a backlash from fans because they thought, oh, you're forcing our hand on how you want us to feel about this guy, and we're going to revolt.
The WWE fans weren't having it. They wanted nothing to do with it.
The boos continued, and Reigns took them personally. Time and again, he fought against loud what chants that interrupted his promos. In the following WrestleManias, Reigns found himself in major matches again, often against the wishes of the fan base.
Roman Reigns is back in the main event at WrestleMania.
At WrestleMania 32, he defeated Triple H for the title. Once again, the beauty of the moment was drowned out by a chorus of boos. The following year, he faced The Undertaker. The match disappointed both Reigns and Taker, who were dissatisfied with their performance. Meanwhile, Dean Ambrose faded into the background. Despite his solid performances and victories, Ambrose was discontent with his role. He craved clever storylines and refused to play a one-dimensional character. Ambrose faced challenges. At WrestleMania 32, he clashed with Brock Lesnar. Ambrose brought numerous innovative ideas into the match, but Lesnar shut them down. Lesnar preferred a conventional street fight involving steel steps and chair shots. The disparity between their visions led to tense backstage encounters and negatively impacted their match. While it was decent, many fans deemed it the biggest letdown of the evening. During this time, Ambrose appeared scatterbrained and disconnected in interviews. Rumors swirled about his excessive drinking and unprofessional behavior.
I made sure to come in this morning.
Yeah,
I'm
you
sure
did.
that I
You
saw
guys are-
you face to face.
An awkward appearance on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast on the WWE Network was the cherry on top. Austin asked about Ambrose's upbringing, but he dodged the question, leading to a lackluster conversation. Austin remained annoyed at Ambrose's lack of passion long after their interaction.
we went to the ring. I went to the ring that night.
Ambrose had his fair share of missteps, Reigns still struggled to win over the fans, and Rollins battled through injuries. It wasn't smooth sailing for the former Shield members, but come mid-year, all worries were cast aside. Money in the Bank 2016 marked a monumental evening for the Shield. Reigns entered as the WWE Champion, Rollins snatched the title from him in the main event, and Ambrose capitalized on his newly won Money in the Bank briefcase to claim the title for himself. It was a night of profound significance. WWE made it clear all three could carry the mantle of top champion. All three had what it takes to lead the company. The Shield's popularity was so potent that WWE orchestrated several reunions, much to the delight of the fans. However, Rollins and Ambrose weren't fans of these reunions, especially when Kurt Angle got involved. They played along, but found the lack of creative direction upsetting. One of them more than the others. Dean Ambrose gradually grew discontented with his career. Vince McMahon viewed him as a loony goofball, so that's how he was portrayed. Ambrose struggled with his character, but gave it his all. He wrestled more matches than anyone else, kept working despite injuries, and he never skipped a media appearance. His work ethic was unparalleled. He hoped a heel turn would improve his positioning, but that backfired.
Well, if he saw me as this goofball idiot, forgive me for thinking that a goofball idiot bad guy couldn't draw any money. Apparently they thought that it would.
Ambrose felt undervalued. He was losing his passion for the sport he loved. Eventually, his injuries became so debilitating that he took a hiatus.
I was actually relieved to be able to go home and be hurt. Like, for the first month, I was like, this is great. I'm gonna watch fucking Family Guy and get drunk all day. This is great.
But as his break neared its end, Ambrose felt a familiar sense of unease creeping in. He didn't want to return to WWE. He didn't want to deal with the creative nonsense. He wanted out. While the money and his lucrative contract were compelling reasons to stay, earning around $200,000 per month, $2.5 million per year, he couldn't bear working under Vince McMahon any longer.
I wasn't like excited to leave yet. I was like bitter about it because I'm like, I can't believe they're gonna make me leave. They're gonna make me walk away from all this money.
The final straw for him was WWE's insensitive reaction to Roman Reigns' leukemia diagnosis. His best friend was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, and he was supposed to make fun of it in a promo. The creative team pitched tasteless ideas. The plan was for Ambrose to berate the audience as disease-inducing.
There is no medicine for you. Did you really think that I would expose myself for Raw tonight in the toxic dump that is Milwaukee?
It was another storyline that broke Ambrose internally.
I can't believe that. Can we not just write one good storyline? Can we not write one good promo? Does everything have to be f***ing stupid? Does everything have to make me look like an idiot? Like, for f***'s sake.
His frustration had reached a tipping point. He had no choice but to leave WWE. He joined the competition, AEW, and sat down for a podcast with Chris Jericho, airing his grievances about the market leader. In the interview, he vented his frustration and bitterness. This didn't sit well with his Shield brothers, Rollins and Reigns. The two identified with WWE. As pillars of the company, they owed their big breaks and full bank accounts to Triple H and Vince. In an interview, Rollins criticized his former Shield colleague Ambrose for this reason.
I thought some of the stuff he said on the Jericho podcast was a little unnecessary, and I thought it was, is one of those things where he couldn't handle the pressure.
Reigns and Rollins viewed Ambrose's departure critically, but it was the right move. Ambrose, now known as Jon Moxley, ascended to the main event scene and became PWI Wrestler of the Year in 2020. This award, which has been dominated by the Shield in recent years, was also bestowed upon Reigns in 2022 and 2016, and Rollins thrice. in 2015, 2019, and 2023. This statistic underscores the immense influence of the Shield on the wrestling world. The trio stands among the best and biggest stars.
We're gonna own the business.
Dean Ambrose is about to blow the doors off everything.
Seth Rollins is literally one of the most amazing, fun wrestlers to watch in the world.
Roman has a breakout quality to him.
Believe that!
If you're looking for a franchise player, if you made a model, the model would be Roman Reigns.
The key to his success was a cohesive character, one he could truly identify with.
He kind of made himself into what he thought he should have been this whole time, and that obviously worked.
We learned the most from failure, and Roman had his share of knocks, and finally was just like, I'm doing it my own way. And it has been a wrap ever since. It has been drop mic, conversation over. There's nobody like him. He should be compared only to himself.
Above all else, it is a wrestler's role that determines whether fans love or hate them. Roman Reigns grew into the character he had always wanted to be.
Now the whole world can acknowledge me.
The Tribal Chief, a man of power and authority who bends the rules to defend family pride.
My whole life I wanted to be somebody significant. I wanted to be a man of influence. But little did I know it was going to be through connecting into the skin of the Tribal Chief. I didn't realize that that's what I was after my entire life.
Yet the Tribal Chief on television isn't entirely who he is. There's a distinction.
Roman's not a people pleaser. He doesn't give a what anybody thinks about him. He can't, because that's always been the thing that's let him down. That's the difference between Joe and Roman, is I've taken one side of Joe and I've completely magnified it, spotlighted it. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. He'll do whatever he has to do to be the very best.
Sometimes the bad guys win.
An old saying in wrestling goes, the best character is just the real person turned up to 200%. Roman Reigns achieved what had long been overdue, a credible character.
Everything has purpose, and that comes with knowing what your character is. You're trying to capture people's imagination. That's what you do. They have to believe in you, and people believe in Roman. Whether they like him, they don't like him, they believe in him.
As of now, Roman Reigns is regarded as the most successful member of the Shield. Moreover, Reigns has established himself as a locker room leader, taking on the role previously held by the likes of John Cena and The Undertaker. He sets an example with his work ethic, he communicates with everyone, warmly welcomes new talents, resolves disputes, and fosters team spirit. He also makes tough decisions when necessary. For example, when Enzo Amore lost face in the summer of 2016 and alienated himself from his co-workers. During the European tour, he was constantly shouting inappropriate jokes on the tour bus. Wrestlers were increasingly annoyed. Reigns took it upon himself to kick Enzo off the bus, so he had to make his way to the next tour stop without his colleagues. But none of that would have been possible without Rollins and Ambrose. He's not just a top guy, but one of 3 top guys from perhaps the greatest stable in WWE history, the Shield.